This is part 5 of the Tamiya Avante 2011 build series. So, as I had promised after the last video, I would make this video after completing the steering set. So basically from the last video I left off here, having just installed the front suspension arms, and then we went to the front universals and the front hub carriers. So what's interesting about this system is that the steering knuckles are on a sort of the way they attach to the, I think this is the C hub carrier, is kind of unique. So if, for example, I unscrewed this camber link here, then I could rotate this thing back and forth, but the drive shaft won't pop out. It'll stay where it is. And that's because that's kind of determined by these linkages for the suspension arm here. So it's rather different from, say, a more modern four-wheel drive chassis, where if you want to, say, get to the ball diff, if you have a ball diff in a modern chassis, you would just pop off the camber link and then pull this back, pull the drive shaft out, and put your screw in to adjust the ball diff. Here, it doesn't do that. You can take this out, and this whole thing just sort of stays where it is. It's pretty neat. But anyway, I did mention in the previous video about these washers here and this screw, and that determines the steering lock. So those screws, or that screw, is right here. Okay, so as the knuckle goes up, say forward this way, if I want to turn right, it will bump up against this screw. So if I add more washers or fewer washers to this screw, I can change how much total steering lock I get. And that's kind of a neat little feature there. So what else? Oh, so I got the racing steering set in here, right? The standard Avante 2011 steering set is this metal piece here, is this metal assembly, and it's rather sloppy, so I just decided to get the racing steering set, the same thing that's in this black special here. As you can see, it's also got the carbon fiber ball bearing racing steering set, and that's the same thing as what is on here. Okay, but you have to, this is actually, you have to buy that. So it's 8 ball bearings total, 2 in here, 2 here, 2 here, and 2 here. It's very smooth, very little slop, so I like it a lot. These turnbuckles, these are actual turnbuckles here. They are steel, they're not titanium or anything, but they get the job done. They work pretty well. And I had mentioned in the previous video that the ball stud that mounts here, I didn't know what that was, but then I realized shortly after that that's actually where you mount the front shocks. So if you look on here for the Avante Black Special, that little ball stud right there, the foot of the front shock, that's where it mounts. Okay, so in the end it's going to look something like this. They're the exact same chassis, just this is the Black Special, that's the 2011. The main difference between these two is that the Black Special has ball diffs and a one-way center bearing. This has gear diffs and a ball diff for the center diff. Otherwise they are exactly the same, and of course the steering. Okay, let's just put that over there. Okay, so this is where we are right now. Of course, I have this little steering rod that goes here, and then the servo is gonna attach here somewhere. Very long rod. So this will go on later after I install the servo. But speaking of the servo, I should mention it now. The under tray is going to, have some kind of a boundary out here. So you want to make sure you get a servo that is short enough just that it doesn't push the under tray out. So going back to the Black Special here, right? That's where the steering servo mounts, and you can see it just barely fits inside that tray. So if the servo were any longer, it would push that under tray out, and then when the body comes, the top body comes around, it'll get the foot of that body will get pushed out by that steering servo. Okay, so that's not something that you want. So the servo that I got Where did I put it? Oh, right here. I have the Hi-Tech 625 MG. It's just a standard, it's a non-digital steering servo, but you can just look up the dimensions for this. Actually, I can probably show you here. It's 41 by 20 by 38. So 41 millimeters out this way, or no, 41 this way, 20 tall, 38 deep. So something around there should fit this chassis just fine, because I have the 625 also in the Black Special. Okay, so this is where we are right now. Next I'm going to do the shocks, both the front and rear shocks, and after that I mount them, and then I get to the electronics, and then we're really on the home stretch there: tires, driver figure, body, all that stuff. So this is actually mostly complete. Okay, and I should point out maybe a few other things. If you go back a couple of videos where I was putting together the gear diffs, that was maybe part 2A. I was using the anti-wear grease for the gears inside the gear diff. I said this is a very viscous grease, and it shows. You don't even have to fill the gear diff with that. You just have to coat the gears in that anti-wear grease, and just by turning this, you can feel how sort of tense or how tight the diff is. Of course, this will wear in over time, but it does feel nice and smooth. Okay, and I am using, again, the clamp style hex units that come with the kit. In the Black Special, I was using these HPI units right here, which are also fine. I do like these. They're a simpler design. But one problem you may run into with this kind of design, which is probably, I suspect that's why Tamiya went with these clamp units, is that this set screw pushes against the drive pin, and then that can distort the drive pin and lead to some binding in the drivetrain. So that could be a problem with these. But on the other hand, the problem with the clamp style units is that if you over tighten the screw to clamp it in, you can break the screw. That's what I did when I first built the Black Special. So that's why I went to these guys for the Black Special. Okay, so they each have their pluses and minuses. But anyway, this is where we are right now. And I'll make another video after getting the shocks built and mounted.